BSM Summit in New York City. Mark and Seth are with me now. And Seth, you get all this information over a 2-day period, and you want to implement it. What's that first step once you get back home and implementing that?
Well, they say the best way to eat an elephant's one bite at a time. So you have to compartmentalize, right? And you have to figure out what's the most appropriate and the most efficient thing that you can do immediately that's going to have an impact. You don't want to revamp and change the entire station, because you could, and I know Mark will agree with me here, you could change everything if you really wanted to. It's amazing how much this business has evolved in 5 years and how we may be ahead in some aspects, but so far behind in the others. You have to evaluate the staff that you currently have and what can we do with that current staff before you need to evaluate, do we need to make changes and where do we go from here. But tip of the hat to Jason, this has been absolutely amazing.
A couple things you're taking back to Atlanta.
Well, I think that for my station, which is a fairly new station, I think we talk about the concept of grabbing younger audiences. We don't fully have a brand yet, so for us, there's an advantage that we can take advantage of in trying to grab that younger audience and keep them going forward. As they talked about with some of the more heritage stations, you're almost kind of dropping it in reverse and trying to do something you're not used to doing. So I think that's one of the things. But in general, this is almost like the basic blocking and tackling drills of our industry, what we're all kind of going over every day. And that's important stuff, because in the day-to-day life of radio, sometimes you forget those things and they slip away because there's a big news story or because something is consuming you, a programming event or a promotional event that kind of just takes away from what you're supposed to do. This is a solid reminder of all those kind of X's and O's, and as I said, blocking and tackling that is really important in our industry every day.
How about the networking opportunities that have been available?
It's incredible. I mean, and I was remarking to Damon and Mendelara before, when you go to Radio Row at Super Bowl, it's great because everybody in the industry is there and it's a lot of fun. But the problem with everybody there at Radio Row is that their time is so limited because they're trying to get the next big guest, or they're still trying to do a radio show, or they're dealing with their network people who are there and everything else, and there's where are we going to dinner tonight, and where's the big party and everything else. Here, everybody who is a decision maker is here to talk shop, because the whole point of this conference is that we're talking shop. So it is a much more amenable format to get 10 minutes of somebody's time to talk shop, because that's the topic of everything that's going on. I think that is a critical difference where, Super Bowl and Radio Row is great and it's a lot of fun and you can shake hands and just have conversations. It's not the best time to sort of narrow somebody down for a one-on-one and say, hey, here's what I'm thinking and here's what are your thoughts, and have those kind of conversations, but you can do that here.
One of the cool draws for me is you may listen to a guy on his radio show and he's like, okay, maybe he's relatable, he's good at his job, I know that. But you get him in a setting like this in a panel and you find out so much more about it. It's way more personal. Is there a certain talent that you heard from this week that you're like, wow, I really like that guy, I might check out his show a little bit more?
And I think Mark will agree with me on this. Depending on the market that you're in, you have to know your audience. And that's what you learn about this, is know your audience and know who you're playing to. There's things that Mike Francesa can do in New York, Mark knows, you could never do that in Atlanta.
Right.
There are things that take place, Paul Feinbaum, and how he builds his show in Alabama. I lived in Alabama for 2 years. That would work in Alabama. You try to do what Paul does in LA, I don't know if it would work. But what you want to do is you understand each market and where they're coming from, and you can sit there and say, okay, that would work here. My whole concept of a show wouldn't work the way he does it, but that part might. You almost become a Frankenstein monster when you're coming to put your things together, but it's absolutely brilliant.